All right, let's start with the big story that we are tracking on Wion at this hour, where the death toll in the Pulwama terror attack has risen to 37. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in fact chairing a high-level meeting with Home Minister Rajnath Singh, Finance Minister Arun Jaish, the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and other top officials of the intelligence and all three heads of the armed forces. Now, this is a meeting that is presently underway where you can see the Prime Minister heading the Cabinet Committee on Security, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Foreign Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, besides Finance Minister Arun Jaish, who's taken charge of his ministry back again today. He is also present, and present is Ajit Doval, who is also giving his input on the course of action that India should in fact resort to. So all eyes are on this meeting, which is presently underway in New Delhi. What will be decided by this high-level meeting will of course be interesting to look out for, and it could of course decide the course that India will chart in responding to this dastardly terror attack that has claimed the lives of 37 CRPF personnel. Now, India's Home Minister Rajnath Singh will also be visiting Srinagar later in the day today. The senior minister is expected to meet with the CRPF personnel and take stock of the situation. Now, the Director General of the CRPF will be visiting the Kashmir Valley as well. And now, in the light of the tensions, mobile services have been suspended in Jammu. So this is what the scene is like in Pulwama at this point of time, where the security has in fact been tightened, and there is a very high level meeting, a cabinet committee meeting on security that is underway, which will decide the course of action that India will of course take in responding to this dastardly terror attack. We'll of course be waiting for the outcome of the meeting, which is expected in some time later on today. And also, an investigation is presently underway to try and find out if this was a lone wolf attack. Now, what is being described is that the manner in which this attack was carried out, there is a shift in terms of the strategy that has been used by the terrorists. Now, Masood Azhar's Jaish-e-Mohammed, this is the outfit that's actually claimed responsibility for the attack. And from the latest information that is coming in, the Cabinet Committee on Security's meeting, we're given to understand, has just come to an end. So we can expect some information to trickle out in terms of what was the decision that was taken. Remember last time round when Uri happened, in which 19 Indian soldiers lost their lives, India decided to embark on a very strong response and it carried out the surgical strikes. It remains to be seen as to what India's response will be this time round, where about 37 CRPF soldiers have lost their lives after this dastardly terror attack. And also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has tweeted after this attack. He has said that every effort will be made to ensure that the sacrifice of these soldiers does not go in vain. A top security panel has met in New Delhi, and we are waiting the details as to what is the outcome of the meeting. And for more on this, we are joined in by my colleague Siddhant Sibal, who is joining us live from New Delhi. Good morning to you, Siddhant. Now, this is an extremely tough time at which this meeting was held, the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting, which was headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We're given to understand that NSA Ajit Doval, besides the Defence Minister and also the Finance Minister and also the External Affairs Minister, were a part of the meeting. Do we at this point of time have any information as to what is the outcome of this meet?
Well, Mohammed, the meeting just got over and the ministers have left the office of the Prime Minister. We do expect some kind of statement. Sources are telling us that India is also mulling some diplomatic response, but it will be clear in next 1 hour's time. But we do expect a strong response because we know 12 hours after that terrible attack in Jammu and Kashmir, there of course have been called for strong action. Last time the Uri attack happened and India boycotted the SAARC summit. This time around also some action is expected. Next week an important thing is going to happen. The Kulbhushan Yadav case will be taken up by the World Court, and then of course on 14th of March the Kartarpur talks will take place between Indian and the Pakistani officials. Of course, there will be impact of the developments which have happened on Thursday. But other than that, we have seen how the world community has reacted. There have been releases after releases, tweets after tweets after the terrible attack by foreign ministers, by ambassadors, and of course the White House and the State Department also coming out with a strong statement, hitting out at Pakistan, calling out on Pakistan to stop providing support to terrorism. We also saw Pakistani flip-flop on their press release. They issued a release, and 15 minutes later, they also again issued a release which shows the confusion in Islamabad. But by and large, it's the silence in China, in Beijing, that is stinging New Delhi, because New Delhi is awaiting a Chinese response. Sources have told Wion that no reaction from China is something that is being noted by New Delhi. We do expect a statement or some kind of reaction by China in its daily briefing, but by that time the message has been taken by New Delhi. The ambassador of China in New Delhi is very active on Twitter, but he also hasn't taken to Twitter to react on it, unlike his counterparts like the American ambassador, like the French ambassador, like the Israeli ambassador, who was quick to react on Twitter, but no reaction from China. We know the reason: the all-weather friendship between Islamabad and China, and of course the China-Pakistan economic corridor that connects Western China to West Asia, something that's very crucial to China's economic policies. So clearly a lot of things right now being played out, and New Delhi of course is expected to react very strongly very soon.
Absolutely indeed, Siddhant. We'll of course be tracking that development, but to dwell a bit more in terms of how Pakistan has reacted after this incident, they've put out two press releases. The first one mentioned, I think the defense minister may just speak. We're getting live visuals of Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. We will get her reaction as soon as she speaks with the press there. But this is in many ways an extremely trying time, where India, which has been trying repeatedly, time and again, to isolate Pakistan, and this is something which every country in the world, including the United States, has said that Pakistan must crack down on terror. And every time there is some pressure, Pakistan appears to be trying to crack down on Pakistan, but there is no concrete action.
Because Pakistan is not willing to change itself. Global pressure is mounting on Islamabad, but Pakistan has a history of backstabbing and its own policies which goes against its neighborhood. Both its neighbor, all three actually of its neighbor, Iran, whether it's Afghanistan or it's India, have reacted. Day before yesterday, we saw a terrible attack in Iran. India, of course, condemned the attack, and the leadership there tweeted saying that there are secret agencies involved in the neighborhood, without taking names, of ISI involved in neighborhood responsible for the terror attacks. We just saw in the morning comments from America also coming how ISI has its fingerprints on the entire terror attack which has taken place in India. But largely the pressure is growing on Pakistan, but it's up to China also to take some strong action, because Pakistan will very soon become a liability for China because of its continued support to terrorism. And this is something that China has to now act on, because now the pressure will grow on Beijing rather than on Islamabad, because Islamabad is considered a nuisance with a begging bowl in one hand and bomb in another hand. But China, one of the second largest in fact economy on this planet, and a country which has a major stake in global order, is not acting against a nuisance which is creating problem in the region, going against the economic norms, going against the political norms, and hurting and killing civilians because of its own stated policy, part of its policy of supporting terrorism. So clearly it's up to China now, because remember, China was the country that 3 times blocked Masood Azhar being blocked at the United Nations Security Council sanction list, the 1267 committee, under which India had proposed the banning and of designation of Masood Azhar, but China of course blocked it. So this is something that will be on the mind of New Delhi and of course Washington and rest of the global capitals.
But realistically speaking, Siddhant, in terms of how China has behaved so far, it's always tried to provide a long leash to Pakistan. It's always defended Pakistan every time India has raised the issue of Masood Azhar at the United Nations. Will China change its tack? Because now it's always been in black and white, but China has said that there is not enough evidence, that there is not enough consensus to in fact brand Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist. But will China change its tack now?
Well, that is something we have to wait, and in few hours' time we'll get to know, because China has to at one point react on the developments which have happened, and that reaction will be keenly noted by New Delhi. The last time a question was asked to the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry was around in November or December on Masood Azhar, on which they continued their stance, saying that there is no consensus, there is no evidence, but now the evidence is on their face. They have to react on this. But this is important because given the fact that 2018 was a good year for India-China relationship, we saw the Indian Prime Minister meeting the Chinese President Xi Jinping 4 times. There was this famous informal Wuhan summit in April, after which both the countries reset their ties after the Doklam crisis in 2017, and that Wuhan bonhomie we saw in Argentina, we saw in China, we saw in South Africa, on the sidelines of G20, on the sidelines of BRICS, and of course the Chinese President Xi Jinping will be visiting India later this year as part of the second informal summit. Just few days from now, there will be Russia, India, China, RIC summit of the foreign ministers in Beijing, where of course Afghanistan will be top agenda. But now the dynamics have changed with this terrible terror attacks, and pressure is on China to react, to act on Pakistan, which is a nuisance which is destabilizing the region and not changing this track when it comes to supporting terrorism and terrorism infrastructure.
Right. Absolutely, and also I'd like to draw your attention back to how Pakistan has reacted to this entire incident. Pakistan has tried to wash its hand off. It has said that an investigation needs to be done before Pakistan can be blamed on this. But the fact of the matter is, Jaish-e-Mohammed has taken responsibility for the attack, and Jaish-e-Mohammed, as we all know, operates out of Pakistan. So can Pakistan again try wash its hands off like it has been able to do in the past and get away, despite the fact that these terror attacks have happened not just this time but also in the past as well?
Well, Pakistan will always do like this. It will wash its hand off on any terror attack which happens in the region. We have seen number of terror attacks in Kabul with direct links to Islamabad. The government in Kabul have been asking Pakistan to rein in these terror attacks, but and of course these terrorists. But Pakistan has not changed its tactics. Last 4 years have been very good years in the sense that the hinterland of India never saw major terror attacks. There haven't been any terror attack. It has been terror-free last 4 or 5 years since the Modi government. But of course situation in Kashmir deteriorated because of the cross-border terrorism, and of course Pakistan providing fire cover to these infiltrators who have been coming to Jammu and Kashmir and creating havoc there. That is something that India has raised many times. There were 2 note bells sent by India, one in January and one of course earlier this month on the issue of terrorism, on the issue of terrorists roaming freely on the streets of Lahore. There was this rally on 5th of February when Pakistan marks that so-called Kashmir Solidarity Day, and we saw how the Pakistani Foreign Minister acted and participated in anti-India events in London. India took strongly, but what was Islamabad's response? No response. Islamabad has been saying that it wants peace with India. Its Prime Minister Imran Khan has been saying that he is a peace snake. He believes in peace. He wants to talk with India. He wants to have dialogue with India. But what is India getting? India is getting a terrorist attack. We saw what happened when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi tried to have peace talks with Pakistan. He went to Lahore after Afghanistan, that famous stopover, and what did India got? India got a terrorist attack, and this has been the norm from Pakistan. And Pakistan is not changing its track. It's high time that the world acts on Islamabad, and of course India is expected to act on Islamabad. We are getting information through sources that India is mulling some diplomatic action as well.
Absolutely indeed, Siddhant. Do continue to stay on with us. We are getting live visuals